Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's my new video where we are going to cover my top 5 tips I think every single Kog'Maw player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better Kog'Maw player and to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole by the end of it. I'm going to put timestamps at every single point in my video at the top of the page. If you want to skip an intro, if you want to skip a certain tip because you already have a good understanding of it, I heavily encourage you to use those. If you want to contact me directly with any questions, you can hit me up in the comments down below. I'm also going to pin my Discord if you'd like to join there and ask me any questions, as well as you can hit that bell button and you can hit the subscribe button and you will be notified when I go live on my stream here on YouTube and you ask me questions there. Finally, as I'm a bit limited with the format of this video, I heavily encourage you to add your own tips down below if you are a really seasoned Kog'Maw player and you'd like to add your own, as well as for the final thing here with the intro, I'm going to put a survey or a poll or whatever have you for the next champion that you guys want to see. So I'll let you guys decide what champion you guys want to see. This was the yesterday's winner, so I'm just kind of going off of whatever you guys really want to see next. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the first tip. Alright, and jumping into tip number 1, I want to talk a little bit about the Q and how I'm going to cover this video. I'm going to cover it from two different respects. I'm going to cover it from the on-hit build that's a little bit more prevalent, that you see a lot more when people are playing Kog'Maw, and from the perspective of the AP caster that you see a bit in the mid lane. First thing I want to cover is the caustic spittle. It is extremely important for the on-hit build of Kog'Maw because it gives you a bonus attack speed from a passive, so it's a really nice thing to max as it gives you more bonus attack speed the higher thing you level. Obviously, you're not doing this first because the Bio-Arcane Barrage is a little bit more important, but one thing that you really want to keep in mind is it gives you a bit of armor and magic resist shred, which is going to be highly effective against tanks as it is a percentage level and not a flat value. So usually assassins really like lethality and magic pen because those are flat values. The reason why Kog'Maw is a great tank killer is because he has mixed damage, percentage HP, and this percentage shred that is going to be extremely effective. So Kog'Maw is an amazing pick for front to back team fights, and this is going to be extremely effective and prevalent for Kog'Maw when you are in these really big fights and you are looking to work into a front to back manner. That really is where Kog'Maw thrives. So you want to get really used to the missile speed when you are using on-hit Kog'Maw and making sure that you are really getting good at hitting the target that you know people are going to focus first or is going to be in the front of the line, and you know that you are going to start and really start being that one that you are going to be damaging. Now, the second way you want to look at the Q when you are playing the AP caster version of Kog'Maw is you want to have it down on the enemy before you start your shred and your burst. So your E is your predominant damage that is going to be coming out of Kog'Maw. It's going to be one of your higher damage spells outside of your ultimate. So you want to make sure that you have this percentage shred down on the target and then hitting them with the Q, E, R, and that is going to be just a basic, really long range burst combo that is going to be hitting the champion. You can hit confirm the E void used, and when you know that E is going to hit them, throw out your Q and your R. Now this is going to be well outside of even your W auto attack range, and this is just a great way to get a good amount of poke when you're playing AP Kog'Maw is just by hitting the Q, E, R, and they're all about the same amount of range when you are playing Kog'Maw, so keep this in mind. The R does get a little bit longer the more you level it up, but if you can hit the Q on an enemy, you can hit the QER. So just make sure that that is just your basic combo where you're getting the most amount out of your damage by using the shred. And that will wrap up tip number 1 for Kog'Maw. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, let's cover Bio-Arcane Barrage and why I think it's extremely important to have a good understanding of this. First up, when you are playing on-hit Kog'Maw, this is your biggest burst window that is allowed when you are playing it. Your biggest burst window when you're playing AP Kog'Maw is when you have your EQR up all at the same time and you can throw out a really quick volley of a burst. But when you're playing on-hit, this is really when you want to be taking full advantage of it. So when you want to proc this window, you have about 8 seconds. This is going to usually be the amount of time that's going to take for you to decide the team fight. So you want to make ssure that, particularly if you have a Runon's Hurricane up, that you are hitting as many targets as possible, as the Bio-Arcane Barrage on-hit ability is going to be applied through your Runon. So you want to be hitting as many champions as possible with this Bio-Arcane Barrage power window. So making sure that you are proccing this not only when you are only auto-attacking one person, maybe there's just one diver, maybe a Nautilus just Q hooked in, you don't want to be proccing it then. You want to wait for the back line to start committing, and then you want to have this window of power up, and you want to get a really good ability at orb blocking when you are playing on-hit Kog'Maw. This is just the #1 key when you are playing Kog'Maw. You can find it under the interface, or you can find it, sorry, under hotkeys, player movement, and then you want to have a player quick move where you can go like this, and you don't have to target the enemy that you are hitting. You are just going to be auto attack moving when you are playing him, and it's going to be a little bit different just depending on the attack speed. It can look a little bit silly when you have rage blades stacked up and your lethal tempo stacked up. You start kind of moving all around the place, but that is a good understanding of where it should be when you're on hit. So when you're playing AP Kog'Maw, this is going to be an extremely high amount of AP scaling that is going to be put on this W, but it is going to be a little bit of just consistent damage that is going to be coming out of you, and it's not going to be part of your main burst. You want to be effectively choosing your target, as you are not going to have Runons in the AP build. You want to be focusing this on targets that are really high value, and they're going to get a lot out of the percentage HP damage from. So making sure that you are using your Bio Arcane Barrage in points where you are feeling a little bit safe to get in that auto attack range, as when you are playing AP Kog'Maw, you generally do not have to go into the auto attack range if there is an assassin waiting to jump on top of you. And that will wrap up tip number 2 for Kog'Maw. Alright, and jumping into tip number 3, I want to cover how you can effectively look to use the Void Ooze. Now, the Void Ooze is extremely important for the on-hit Kog'Maw, not really in a damage perspective like the AP version, but this is extremely important because it gives you an AoE slow for 4 seconds that scales up to 52% of a slow, which is extremely strong. So make sure that when you have this E up, this is your primary defensive tool when you are playing Kog'Maw. Outside of your movement speed increase you can get out of the Blade of the Rune King, and maybe if you're going a little bit more of a defensive type of build with the Frozen Mallet. So making sure that you are using your Void Ooze in combo with when you are looking to use your Bio Arcane Barrage, because this allows you to kite people and really allows you to get a lot of damage down before people are able to hit you. So making sure that people are looking to, maybe after they use their engage button, maybe after a Leona E's in and Qs, they are really committed to the fight, and they are not going to get a really easy time out of moving around after that. So making sure that you are covering the most amount of area with this slow is going to really help you in team fights, and matching the terrain. And for example, throwing your E down a field like this is going to be extremely effective, as opposed to throwing it like that, and then as opposed to the lateral way going up and down, you'd want to throw your E down. So you want to cover as much of the fight as possible when you are using the on-hit Kog'Maw, when you are using your Void Ooze, as it's going to provide you a lot of room to kite when you are playing it. Next up, when you are playing AP Kog'Maw, this is one of your primary damaging abilities, and you want to be looking to use it as a burst. Now, a great part about this E is it is not stopped by enemy minions, and you're able to reach the back line when you are in team fights. The tanks cannot block the E damage, as it is just going to roll through them. So getting a good understanding of the Void Ooze isn't really about, when you're playing an AP Kog'Maw, about covering as much of the land as possible. It's more about hitting that backline target that you really want to burst out, and enabling your Q or maybe your R to hit that target, because they have a little bit of a slow on them if you're not maximizing damage with the shred, because the front line is going to block it. This is going to be an extremely easy way for you to maximize hitting your living artillery with your Rylai's debuff. And that will wrap up this tip. Alright, getting into tip number 4, I want to talk about the living artillery and how it affects the 2 different builds. First up, with the on-hit build, you need to be exceedingly careful with the living artillery, because you have a very, very small mana base. You are not an AP build, you do not have the tier, and you are really going to eat up your mana quite quickly. I'm going to just give you guys an example how quickly you can eat up your mana when you are playing it. If just a couple of ultimates that are on a very low cooldown, you can really start chewing up your mana quite quickly. So you want to use it more of an execute type of an ability. You don't want to be constantly throwing it out in team fights. Another thing that you want to look to focus on with Kog'Maw in his ultimate is the exceedingly deceptive hitbox that is on this R. When the reticule that is displayed, very small on this type of on this skin. It differs for each skin, but on this particular skin I like it because it is a small square, as opposed to how it is actually hitting targets is this extremely large circle. So it is extremely deceptive on enemy champions. When they see it, they're like, oh, if I get outside of this square I'm gonna not get hit, but that is really not the case. So look to use this and take full advantage of it by just leading the target a little bit. Is the general team fight, are they moving backwards? You want to kind of lean it a little bit. You want to just lead it a little bit farther behind them. If they are extremely aggressive and they are winning the team fight, you want to lean it a little bit towards yourself, and then to the sides if people are dodging to these sides. It's kind of self-explanatory. When you are playing AP Kog'Maw, this is a extremely important skill to get a good understanding of, because this is where a lot of your execute, this is where a lot of your kills are going to be coming from. If you are able to get really good at this, you are able to just farm out a lot more kills in lane if you are able to chase people down with the living artillery, because you get that rylise, and it really helps you land additional living artillery hits on people when you are landing several in a row. So just get a good understanding of the missile speed and how long it takes for it to hit, and get really good at leading people, and this will help quite heavily. Now, getting a good understanding of bursting out targets in team fights when they are below 40% health. If you couple this with coup de grace, you can really get a lot of burst damage onto enemy champions in a very unsuspecting manner when you are throwing out your living artillery at low targets in team fights. So keep that in mind. That's going to wrap up tip number 4, guys. Alright, and getting into the final tip, I want to cover team fighting in the two different respects when you are playing Kog'Maw. First up, when you are playing on-hit Kog'Maw, you are one of the highest damage champions, the highest damage output champions in the game available in League of Legends. So how you want to effectively use your team fights are you want to get in front-to-back team fight situations where you have very little threat on yourself, as well as using your allies effectively as meat shields, as you are going to be the most important champion on your team just because of your sheer damage output. So making sure that you are not getting too close to the front line when there are still really big ultimates up. Maybe let your mid lane mage maybe absorb some damage. Be extremely greedy when you are playing Kog'Maw and pick your points. Watch for really high impact abilities. These are things like Zed ultimate, Fizz ultimate, Leona ultimate, Nautilus ultimate. Heavily engaged and heavy damage abilities should hopefully be used before you are looking to really go in and they are running out of offensives to take you down when you are looking to go in. So try and be as extremely greedy when you are playing Kog'Maw, because you are going to be the most important champion in most of these team fights. If the enemy bursts you out, kill you early in the team fight, generally your team is going to lose. If you are able to live for a bit of time and able to get a lot of damage down from your Bio Arcane Barrage, as well as your Rage Blade stacking up and your Runon's Hurricane, you are really just going to decimate any team fight you are in when you are playing on-hit Kog'Maw. Now, when you are playing AP Kog'Maw, you generally can stay at a very long range, making it extremely hard for enemy champions to get to you because of your extremely long range. This is just a huge amount of units that people have to cover, so staying this far in the backline can be very effective. However, being this far back, you have to be very cognizant of flanks, because people are going to be, if they are looking to come from the sides, you are going to be pretty far away from your front line, and it's going to be hard for them to peel. So making sure that you kind of maintain a healthy type of distance is going to be rather important when you're playing AP Kog'Maw in team fights. And what you really want to look to do when you are playing Kog'Maw is to burst out those backline squishies that are looking to get in the back. You're essentially playing a similar role to Xerath, where you're able to shoot over your skill shots over the enemy tanks and front lines and hit the backline champions. So keep that in mind when you are playing AP Kog'Maw, as well as after getting rylise, you are able to peel exceedingly well for your ADC if your ADC is stronger than the enemy, and all you have to do is sometimes maybe just peel off a few divers. It can be extremely effective to use your slow and your burst on those divers to help protect your ADCs. And that will wrap up my final tip for Kog'Maw, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below. And as always, guys, take it easy.